A month ago, I set up my new writing journal here on YouTube. So I thought I would give you a little mini flip through of the last month inside my writing journal to share with you how I've been getting on and the sorts of things that I'm thinking about, which may one day turn into content for my Substack or here on YouTube or even in a book. So my journal now looks like this. It used to look like this, which is a simple hardback journal that I bought off Amazon. It's 120 GSM, it's got a hardcover, and it's got the little elastic bit that you put your pen in. It's got an elastic strap that goes over the top, and it's got the bookmark. All the things that I love in a journal, but the quality of the paper is really important to me, and that is one of the reasons, and the fact that it's a hardback and it lays flat. They're all the reasons why I love to go with journals like this one. So I've covered this one in paper and washi tape simply because I got bored of the yellow. I thought it'd be a nice autumnal colour, but it got boring really quickly, so that's what I've done here. Now, my journal is very rough and ready. I basically just write in it, and then I add the washi tape at a later date. So if I want some time where it's just me and I just need time away from people, then I may retreat to my bedroom or to my spot on the settee in the lounge, and I will just put in lots of washi tape. I may draw out some quotes. I'll reread it, and I've been rereading it this weekend for the purposes of this video, but also as a kind of soul soother as well. And I've been doing exactly what I've just said, putting in washi tape, pulling out quotes and everything. So I don't decorate it as I'm writing, I go back to it and decorate it. So I started this journal on Tuesday the 26th of September, which you would have seen in that video. Now on page 4 and 5, and this is the other thing that I like about this journal, it has page numbers in the bottom corners, so just there and just here. I have got a few quotes here, and the first one is by Emma, well, the first two is from The Success Myth by Emma Gannon, and she's written, "We need to look at celebrating our wins along the way." And then later down here, she writes, or she's quoted somebody else who says, "You become 42% more likely to achieve your goals and dreams simply by writing them down on a daily basis." And I thought this was quite relevant to myself, and that's why I suppose I pulled the quotes out and I've included them in here. And as I was going through yesterday, I thought, oh, I could include this in a piece for Substack or for a video about my project planning system. And I know I've had questions about this. I know people are interested in it, and those quotes might be a good place to start. And I wrote those quotes down without really thinking about what it could become, just that I was attracted to it. It appealed to me. And what I do is I kind of lay a trail of breadcrumbs throughout the course of my writing notebooks, through my writing journals, with ideas, with things that inspire me. And then I find they link together with other bits, and then it becomes something else entirely. And then I've got a quote here from Mel Robbins: "Stop killing your potential by thinking and doubting. It's exhausting." And yeah, I pretty much feel exhausted from all my thinking and doubting. So that really spoke to me. And then here, in green pen, I've written an extract from my "You Are Not Lazy" piece that I wrote on the 10th of October on my Substack. And I like to do this. It kind of ties things together, and you never know, in the future, this might become something even more substantial than just a Substack piece. It might become a book, or I don't know, but I thought it was relevant to that quote above, so I've added it in there. basically saying so many frustrated writers and artists out there are held back by fear. And then dotted throughout this notebook, I've got pieces of paper here which just covers up some of the more private things that I've written. But here on the right hand side, I've written something that I've highlighted. Loneliness when writing, is it just procrastination, scared of doing the next thing? And I've highlighted that because later on I've noticed that I've written some more things about loneliness, and then I related it to burnout. I think I'm going to explore this more, but at the moment I'm just laying down the breadcrumbs that will become something else, and I've not quite reached where I'm going with it yet. But it's interesting, to me it's interesting how these different layers around loneliness and burnout, creative loneliness and burnout, are all coming together. And not only am I gaining content or something to write about, but I'm also understanding myself more. It's quite magical, really. And here I've got a quote from my husband: "You can be a positive force for change. You can have a positive impact on people's lives. Do you want to do that, or do you want to focus on all the toxic stuff elsewhere?" And here on the right, I've just got an idea for a camera that I may get for the future. At the moment, I just use my iPhone. I think it's an iPhone 14, which is perfectly adequate, but I would like to use something separate, not least because my phone battery keeps draining because I use it so much. And here I've highlighted this, almost like a throwaway sentence really. Do you give up too quickly because you can't see the changes happening quickly enough? I mean, it was throwaway because I've used the word quickly twice in there, so it's not a tidy sentence. But I get the point, I get the meaning, and it's something for me to think about. And this is what I added yesterday, and I wrote, and I guess you compare this progress or lack of it with others on the internet where progress seems so much quicker and more dramatic, but it always is when it's happening to other people. And when, now don't laugh, but this is the second time I've recorded this video, because the first time it went out of focus and I didn't notice, so now I'm constantly looking at my camera to make sure I'm in focus. But I added this in on the previous recording where I've put linked to tiny steps and saving the post-its. That's what I'm doing. I'm saving my post-its so I can physically see the progress that I'm making. Otherwise, you feel like you're not getting anywhere. This may be linked to earlier on when I write about celebrating our wins along the way, something that I pulled from Emma Gannon. And this is a classic example of where I've laid a trail of breadcrumbs, because I wrote this. Then a few days later, I would have written this. Then yesterday, I added that. And then today, I've added this bit. So, yeah, interesting to me. Whether it's interesting to you, that's debatable. And then here we have a couple of post-its that I've stuck in with washi tape. You are not lazy. This is something I simply wrote on a post-it to take a photograph to accompany a Substack piece that I wrote, and I will link to that in the description box below. But then here there's a quote that I pulled from TikTok, and it really spoke to me, and it says, "The magic you're looking for is in the work you're avoiding. People romanticize their plans but dread the execution." And magic, creative magic, is a big thing for me at the moment, not just because I'm reading Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, which is part of the non-fiction book club that I've got on Substack. Again, I'll leave a link. There's a lot of links I'm going to leave below, but I will leave that link below if you're interested in reading alongside us as the month goes on. It was the October book club read, but it's also going to be the November one because I'm delayed because of the illness that I had last week. But yes, creative magic that I'm seeking. And when I was ill, I really missed that journey of seeking the creative magic. I got so bored, so frustrated. And also this romanticising of the planning. I know I do a lot of planning. I enjoy the planning side. I like to romanticise my writing day. I like to romanticise the planning bit, I guess. But this helps me with the execution rather than putting me off. So I've got a lot of things to say about that, but I'm not quite clear on what they are at the moment. So anyway, I've stuck that in because it's inspired me. And then here we have a quote from Elizabeth Gilbert herself, again talking about the creative magic. The universe buries strange jewels deep within us all, and then stands back to see if we can find them. The hunt to uncover these jewels, that's creative living. The courage to go on that hunt in the first place, that's what separates a mundane existence from a more enchanted one. The often surprising results of that hunt, that's what I call big magic. And in the book Big Magic, I've actually added a post-it that I've reiterated here. That's why I think it's important to enjoy the journey and not just focus on the end point. I love the creative journey, and if I am stopped from doing it, I get bored, frustrated, lonely. Every creative day I have moments of magic, whether that's in the process or in the mini results, reaching mini goals, and without that I am bored. I think this is something that I wrote at the beginning of my illness when I just couldn't do anything else. I was so frustrated. It did highlight how important creative magic is for me. And I'm sure that will come to my Substack very soon. And I went on to write here, we can't rely on other people to provide magic in our lives. It has to come from within. And this is something I was really aware of during my illness, because if I stop, then the magic stops. And then it made me think about waiting, how people, and when I say people, I mean myself, sort of sit back and wait for magic to land at your feet. You have to seek it out. And when I write things like this, I'm writing it for myself. I'm trying to encourage myself. It's self-awareness around my creativity. And that's why I find my journal really important. Here I've written, aim to break book proposal down into smaller tasks because I'm losing momentum and vulnerable to stalling. This is something that I noticed about myself, and actually I think I mentioned that in my last book one YouTube video, my November monthly reset, and I decided to break my book proposal project down into even smaller tasks, really small ones, in order to build momentum back up with it. And then here I was watching 60 Minutes on YouTube where they interviewed Pink, and it just occurred to me, how many hours in a day do you think Pink is on her phone? Because she seems to achieve so much, and I thought there's something in that. Now, most of this spread is private, so I've covered it up, but a sentence stood out for me. I don't want to hide my work anymore. This is to do with when I write paid pieces on Substack. I don't tend to talk about them anywhere else, as though I'm embarrassed that I'm asking people to pay to read it. Anyway, I don't quite know. So I'm interested in that sentence, and it's quite possible, especially after recording this, and when I come to edit it, I'll probably write what I've just said about it in my journal. Am I still feeling guilt for asking people to pay to read aspects of my Substack? Why am I not proud of the fact that I have some really good stuff behind a paywall? Anyway, just something to think about and potentially write about at a later date. This is a piece of paper that I wrote on to use for a photograph, again to accompany another piece on Substack. It's from We Have to Make Our Own Creative Magic that I wrote and uploaded on the 24th of October. And I've just put an extract from it here to go with the piece of paper that I stuck in. And the bit that I really liked I enjoyed writing this bit. I've been limiting myself, I've been pulling back as soon as things start to grow. It's only now, as I enter my late 40s, as I dance into the perimenopausal stage, that I'm all, don't hold me back, you confidence-sucking demons. So I've pulled that bit out. Like I say, I enjoyed writing that. Now here, I've done a little tracker that I'm not really going to talk about because this is very much in its infancy and I don't know if it's something I'll continue with, but I saw somebody else doing it on TikTok. So I thought I'd have a go because I'm intrigued as to how much time I spend reading non-fiction, writing my non-fiction book proposal, but also how much time I do on my journaling and my rowing and my walking and everything like that. So anyway, I may talk about that more in the future. But here I've just circled the word lonely again. If you remember, I mentioned creative loneliness at the beginning and I've mentioned it here again. Another case of breadcrumbs being laid in my journal. And here I pulled out an oracle card and it spoke to me, so I've copied it out here as well. And it mentions the word grief and it made me think maybe I'm not creatively lonely. Maybe I'm going through a grieving process. And this is kind of all from my burnout. And yesterday I just added this, no one knows how you're feeling during burnout. And I feel I'm going through something now that I ignored as I was going through it. Just put in here, finding emotions coming to the fore now. And what I'm thinking of is loneliness is perhaps, like I said, grief or something like that. I'm not too sure. I'm still laying that trail of breadcrumbs through my journal. And then here I've literally just done a stream of consciousness. Somebody was asking about how I plan my creative projects. So I was just writing everything down. I've repeated myself. It's not brilliant, a brilliant description, but I'm laying down the foundation and I'll perhaps come back to that. Maybe even create a video, a YouTube video about it and go into it in more detail. But when I come to create that YouTube script, I've got something to base it on. Again, I've got a couple more empty trackers here. I'll probably, if it goes well, have them all over this spread for the relevant week. And I've put a little washi tape page marker here so I can easily find my tracker when I need to use it. Just making a record of the fact that this paper that I've used now throughout the entire journal, which I hadn't at the time of putting it here, my lovely friend Claire wrapped my present up in it for my birthday. Here I've got some YouTube ideas that were presented to me by the Sparrow's Path on a YouTube comment, and then I wrote down the things I wanted to talk about from this journal for this video, and then stupidly I stuck them into my notebook, which meant I couldn't then use them for this video, so I've had to write them out again on post-its, so I had guidance for this video. But anyway, at least I've got a record of it. And then finally on this page 54, ladies, don't let anybody tell you are ever past your prime. Never give up. And that was by Michelle Yeoh, the winner of an Oscar. I think that was quite recent. And she is aged 61. And on my Substack lately, I've seen a few people attracted to writing on there, and they're in their 60s, they're in their 70s, and they think, what's the point? They're too old now. And I heartily disagree with that. I don't think you're ever too old in anything. And earlier on in my notebook, I've experimented with a different way of writing. I've not shown you that because it's still too new, it's still too raw. And I put next to it, adjacent to it, that I feel that I'm too old to try this new way of writing, which is ridiculous, but I'm just making a note of the feelings that I have as I'm doing it so that I can rationalize it and I can say, Helen, you're being ridiculous, and not let those false narratives take hold inside my mind. Anyway, there we go. That's my first month in this notebook. I'm starting to get my journaling mojo back again, which I'm really pleased about. During the whole burnout situation, I didn't use my journal much and I got out of the habit. A lot of it is to do with habit, and that's why I've got those habit trackers in there as well. So it's just remembering that if I'm having a thought, to pull out my journal and to write it down.